Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Rundown. This is episode number 11. This is news only, of course, weather and sports and all that fun stuff as well, but no COVID. COVID is going to be in a separate video this week. Today is Saturday, March 13th. Let's get right into it, and of course, the clicker's still not going to work on the first slide again. We have the fourth Sunday of Lent this Sunday. That means we're going to be wearing rose, and we also don't wear violet another day this week. That'll be Friday, the Solemnity of St. Joseph, spouse of the Blessed Virgin Mary. That also means that you can eat meat next Friday, even though it's in Lent and all that fun stuff. The solemnity trumps that, so congratulations, have fun with that. St. Patty's Day on Wednesday as well, so that doesn't mean we wear green vestments. We still wear violet for the time being. Let's get into the weather this week. We got a little bit of winter weather to talk about as well, but the main story is the severe weather happening today, an enhanced risk of severe weather in the Texas Panhandle heading into Oklahoma as well. 10% chance plus significant tornado chance, 30% chance plus significant hail, and 15% chance of severe wind along the same general area outlined on the map right there. Now, this graphic's going to change throughout the day, especially as things begin to get narrowed down. Of course, as we all know, I filmed this video on Friday night, and this graphic isn't from Wilmington Star News. I didn't update that. Oh well. Whatever. This also isn't from Wilmington Star News. Winter weather, by the time we get to Monday of this week, we could see some wintry weather. The Rockies are going to get hit pretty hard by this severe weather system impacting Texas and Oklahoma right now. And of course, Kansas and some of the other states as well. But then as we move up into Monday, we're going to see that snow move from the Rockies over into the Great Lakes, northern Great Lakes. And that's where we're going to be watching a little bit of wintry weather. In terms of the tropics, we have one current storm in the South Pacific, south of India. Its name is something I forget. Sorry, I will not know what to tell you. We do have a couple areas of potential formation over the next several days. Near the Philippines, we could see something, and then Australia as well, as the southern hemisphere is generally where it's more active this time of year. We're looking at highs around 50 both today and tomorrow in Columbus. We're going to see 40 and rain on Monday, upper 50s for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but we're going to have some intermittent rain due to the storm pattern that we have setting up, and possibly a wintry mix instead of rain by the time we get to Thursday night, but don't count on anything too crazy. Maybe see a couple flurries or snowflakes if you're lucky. We'll gradually warm up from 45 for the high on Friday, but to potentially 60 degrees by Sunday. As for Norman, it's going to be a bit warmer, windy and stormy this weekend. We're going to be around 70 for the high all weekend, and it'll stay around 70 for the high through around Tuesday. Now, when we get to Wednesday, we're going to see some storms Tuesday into Wednesday, then windy all day Wednesday and 60 degrees. So it's going to be rather chilly Wednesday. 60 degrees and wind makes it pretty cold, but nothing like how it was earlier. Just dress appropriately and don't go out in the shorts and t-shirt when it's 60 and wind. I mean, you can if you want, but and then for next weekend, we're going to be back up near 70 degrees. Let's talk news and sports. The only thing we have to say, March Madness, the bracket comes out on Sunday night, so stay tuned for that one. And let's talk about some changes coming from the National Weather Service. I'm going to throw a lot at you guys right now, so settle in. All right, so first up, we do have some changes coming to hurricane season. I mean, nothing for sure yet, but a few things of note. This week, actually, we could see some retirement of the 2019 and 2020 storms. They're going to have a meeting. All the countries and meteorologists from those countries are going to get together. They're going to have another one towards the end of April to get everything set up and into place. And then another one in early May, which that one I believe is when they're going to discuss extending the beginning of the hurricane season to May 15th instead of June 1st. The Atlantic hurricane season usually begins on June 1st, but beginning this year, for the first time ever, the National Hurricane Center will be issuing tropical weather outlooks beginning on May 15th for the Atlantic Ocean. Normally it's June 1st when hurricane season starts, but the past 6 years, storms has formed ahead of season. This is something I've been saying for years, that hurricane season needs to be slated as starting earlier than June 1st. And so I do believe that the World Meteorological Organization will approve the extension of hurricane season to beginning on May 15th instead of June 1st, just a matter of when. As for your more local weather changes, on April 28th, that's still a while out, we're going to have a couple changes to how severe weather comes out. You probably won't notice it, but for those who care, there's 4 severe hazards. There's tornado, hail, and wind, and of course flooding as well. Those are big concerns. When you get a tornado warning or a flood warning in your area, you get a little alert that sends off to your phone and it goes crazy, like an Amber Alert. And I believe it's only flash flood warning and tornado warning is what you get. Now, there's 2 other severe hazards, hail and wind. So beginning on April 28th, it's going to be set up so that if hail is above 2.75 inches baseball size or greater, or winds are above 80 miles an hour, you're going to get that alert that you would get for a tornado or a flood event onto your phone, because these are severe life-threatening events. So just like anything like that, you're going to get an alert to your phone, which is going to be very good. Tornadoes can then also now have a catastrophic tag on them. But events catastrophic, like a big tornado heading into a city, well, they'll put the catastrophic tag on there. Softball size hail is being reduced from 4.25 inches to 4 inches. Nothing you have to worry about in Ohio, but whatever. And then in the 2023 hurricane season, extreme wind warnings are going to follow a similar sort of setup as a tornado warning looks right now. And those extreme wind warnings do send out alerts on your phone as it is, but that's something that they're going to add to it. A couple other changes that we're looking at. There's a whole bunch of different flood advisories as it stands right now, but on June 30th, we're going to consolidate all those flood advisories into just one flood advisory product. Instead, there's like 5 different flood advisory products that the Weather Service can choose from. So they're going to narrow it down to one. In April of 2022, we're going to get a couple changes. We're going to change an excessive heat watch and an excessive heat warning to an extreme heat watch and extreme heat warning. And that's because we're going to change the names of all the hot and cold weather events except for the heat advisory. It's going to stay exactly the same. September 1st, 2022, getting into the cold season then, we're going to change wind chill watch and wind chill warning to extreme cold watch and extreme cold warning. And the wind chill advisory is going to be a cold weather advisory. As we know, wind chill watches and warnings are colder than a wind chill advisory, so that's why they get that adjective extreme in front of them. And then cold advisory doesn't sound right, so they added the word weather in there as well. By 2024, or in 2024, we're going to see the biggest change in National Weather Service product issuing history. We're going to get rid of all advisories. So your wind chill advisory, your winter weather advisory, which normally is helpful for knowing if we're going to get the day off school, or heat advisories, dense fog advisories, flood advisories, all those are going to go away. We'll talk more about that on the next slide. Special weather statements, when there's a sub-severe storm, but it's still pretty decently threatening, but nothing too crazy, that's going away as well. They're going to be changed to plain language headlines, and they haven't exactly worked out how those are going to be set up yet. But the good news is special weather statements will now have end times. Previously, it wasn't really an official end time set into the program there. And they're going to have impacts, like for a winter weather advisory, for example, it'll say our impacts are we're going to get or what we currently call winter weather advisory. Instead of winter weather advisory in effect until 6 p.m., it's going to be Wintry weather possible through 6 p.m. Use caution while driving. Up to 2 inches of snow possible, or something to that extent. So lessening it to get people to better recognize the difference between watch and warning. 86% of NWS partners wanted to make the change to get rid of advisories. There's a list of all the advisories that will be getting rid of. That's every single advisory there is. Now, a tsunami warning is going to remain, or tsunami advisory is going to become a tsunami warning, and a small craft advisory is going to become a small craft warning. Now, one of the things of note, the public, only 55% of the public wanted to make this change. So that's somewhat unfortunate, I think, that small of a percentage to make such a big change. The Weather Service knows what they're doing, I guess, but 77% of forecasters, I guess that's how they decide to edge out their decision making. As mentioned earlier, COVID-19 is going to be in a special report. As you can see, we're already pretty decently long on this news report, but only 7 news items to talk about this week. First off, 2 U.S. Catholic news items. Arkansas abortion ban in the USCCB on pro-choice politics. So all about abortion, I guess, this week in United States Catholic politics, I guess. Starting with the Arkansas abortion ban. It's limiting all abortions in all terms at all lengths, except for when the mother's health is in danger. That's the only exception. Otherwise, you can't get an abortion. Fantastic rule. Wouldn't change it if I could. But the text of the law doesn't really do a whole lot. It basically says, Supreme Court, change your mind, and here's what we're doing. So fight us in the Supreme Court. That's basically what it says. It says it compares Roe versus Wade to Plessy versus Ferguson, then says Plessy versus Ferguson was wrong, Roe versus Wade is wrong. And you went back and you changed the 7-1 decision in Plessy versus Ferguson with a 9-0 decision in Brown versus Board of Education. So you can do the same to Roe versus Wade. So we'll see what actually happens with that. Probably nothing, because it's the U.S. government, but at least Arkansas did something productive. Current fines on that are $100,000 or 10 years in prison to the doctors who perform abortion. No, and it explicitly says this, no impact to the woman who obtains one. USCCB asked the president, President Jose Gomez, I believe that's his first name, asked some bishops to create a proposal for a document to address communion to pro-choice politicians on March 1st. The proposal is going to be proposed presumably at the USCCB meeting in June. And then the bishops from there can decide, do we want to go forward with this document or not? And then by their meeting in November, if they decide to go forward with that, then the document will be made. The bishops can then approve it from there if they so choose. Let's get into international Catholic news. A few fun ones this week, a few more disheartening, sad ones this week. Let's talk about the Pope, nuns, Germany, Poland, and Easter, and some potential hopes and changes that'll come to that down the line. Future papal visits. He didn't go to Indonesia, East Timor, Papua New Guinea, down in Oceania last year due to, of course, the coronavirus pandemic. September 12th, he's expected to attend, and he said he will attend, celebrate Mass at the International Eucharistic Congress in Budapest. That'll be fun. He also promised a visit to Beirut, so that will be cool if he goes to Lebanon and visits the Maronites there. And he also said at some point he plans to visit his home country of Argentina, as well as the nearby ones of Uruguay and Brazil. But he said he's not in a rush to go back to his home country. Let's talk about Myanmar real quick, also known as Burma. So on February 1st, their democratic leaders who were elected were detained by the military because the military contested the election that they had. And so people aren't too happy when democracy doesn't happen the way they want it to, as one would. And so they're protesting, as one would. course, the police are on the same side as the military, and they're trying to get these protesters to stop. And a nun knelt in front of the police to ask them to stop shooting and stop using tear gas and the like. And if you see a nun kneeling and crying and yelling at you to do something, you're probably gonna do it. That's just me, maybe. I don't know. Let's talk about Germany real quick. 1 in 3 German Catholics are thinking about leaving the church. Just let that settle in real quick. 1/3 of the German Catholic population is thinking about leaving the church. In 2019, over 250,000 German Catholics left the church. Now, why is this? Why would so many people want to leave the church? Yeah, sure, there's the rise of atheism across the board, any church, and notably in the Catholic Church as well. They have this thing called the synodal way or the synodal path, where they're conducting a synod, and all of their bishops are probably already practicing it, but they want to make it official that they can bless same-sex unions, they want to ordain women priests, and they want to give communion to Protestants. Now, you can't do any of those 3 things in the Catholic Church, and you're never going to be able to, and you aren't Catholic if you do any of those 3 things. The Vatican knows this. The Vatican told them this, and they basically are like, well, we're doing our own thing, Mr. Vatican. And the Vatican's like, well, hope it works out for you, because otherwise you're not Catholic. Now, they haven't explicitly said that yet, but one of the quotes from the officials at the Congregation for Divine Faith said, it's not a plan for the church in Germany or even a plan for the German church. It's a German plan for the whole church. And if that doesn't raise a red flag right there, it should, because later on we're going to talk about the Orthodox and the Orthodox and potential ecumenical dialogues that are taking place. The Orthodox aren't going to accept any of those 3 things that I just listed. So that's a problem. Anyways, let's move on to Poland, which isn't much better. I mean, Poland is fantastic, but the European Union is the most horrible thing that has ever happened to Poland. We already talked about the European Union on abortion a couple weeks ago and what they did to Poland with that. The EU on Thursday called itself an LGBT freedom zone. In the same statement, they accused the Polish president of hate speech because he called the LGBT movement a threat to family life. Well, it is. It completely subverts human sexuality in the order of creation God intended for us. So he's not wrong. And the Polish bishops, of course, have responded to this whole thing by saying, okay, we need to respect LGBT people. That's obvious. Every Catholic, I think, has that has any dialogue in this sphere has first and foremost said we need to respect LGBT people and understand their position, where they're coming from, and they have true desires and yearnings, but we can't accept their views uncritically. We can accept and listen to them and love them, but we can't take their word over the word of God and the word of the Holy Church that has been around for over 2,000 years. That's not how things work. We also, of course, in hand with that, need to recognize the objective truth of human sexuality. Last slide here, a bit lighter, hopefully building bridges instead of tearing them apart, as Germany is doing with itself and the EU is trying to do with Poland. Cardinal Cook wants to work with the East, and he and some of the representatives from the East are trying to get an ecumenical dialogue together to start to potentially set an Easter date that everybody can agree on. For those that don't know, the Eastern Church uses the Julian calendar. We, of course, use the Gregorian calendar because it's better and more accurate. But when the Council of Nicaea met in 325, the Julian calendar was more of a thing than the Gregorian one was, because the Gregorian wasn't up till the 16th century, and that was in the 4th century. So that tends to be a problem. But the Gregorian calendar is more accurate. Anyways, the Orthodox stuck with and still are stuck with the Julian calendar, so their Easter date most years is different than ours. And so one of their archbishops said that 2025, the 1700th anniversary of the Council of Nicaea, would be a good year to do that. And so hopefully, maybe, I don't know, 4 years from now, we'll all be celebrating Easter on the same date and will forevermore as at least one somewhat more unified church than what it used to be. That's all for this episode of The Rundown. Be sure to look at the COVID update this week. It's a special 1 year since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the United States and across the world. The declaration of the pandemic was a year ago this past Thursday. I've been Chris Dixon, InfoWeather Catholic Media.